What's up guys? In this video we are going to be making a small project to showcase and learn about variable sheets here in MatterControl, as well as how to create finalized modifiable objects using the make component function. So let me show you what we're going to be making here today. We are going to be making this little teaspoon here. It's not a super exciting project, but it'll show us how to use the variable tools without having to spend an hour and a half here on this video. So with this tool, you see it has a field over here, and what we can do is input what size of teaspoon we want, and it will adjust the size here to the proper volume. So right now we have a half a teaspoon. We could have 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons, 3/4 of a teaspoon. So it's kind of just a cool little project. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, first things first, come over here and we are going to drag in a variable sheet. Now the way this is going to work, when you're using the variable sheet to create a project, you kind of have to think a few steps ahead. So I've made this teaspoon project several times now, trying to get the process correct. I think I have it down, so you can just follow along with me if you'd like. So we have our variable sheet here, and what we need to do is create it so that we can enter the size of teaspoon we want into our first cell here, and then using equations, we'll take whatever we entered here, the size of the teaspoon, and we are going to convert that size into cubic millimeters, and then we're going to convert our cubic millimeters into the diameter of the bowl, the scoop, I guess. So that might not make sense right off the bat, but I think as we go along, it's going to make sense. So let's get started here. First things first, let's just come up here to A1 right here, and we are going to rename this to, let's do teaspoon size. And we will just put in a default volume of 1 for right now. Next, we are going to come here to this one, and we need to convert this, the size that we put in, into cubic millimeters. 1 teaspoon equals, if my calculations were correct, it is 5,000 cubic millimeters. So right here, let's name this one, we're going to name this one conversion, and it's going to equal our first cell here. So we can either do A1 or we can do teaspoon size, since that's what we named this cell, times 5,000, like so. And then finally, we need to take this cubic millimeters here that we've just determined this value, which is going to be in cubic millimeters, and we need to convert that. And then next, we need to take this value, which is the volume of our teaspoon. So right now, we have it specified 1 teaspoon, which is equal to 5,000 cubic millimeters. Just to show you, if we change this to half a teaspoon, it's going to change the volume here. So we need to take this volume and we need to convert it to the diameter of our scoop. So to do that, let's name this cell. We're going to name this diameter equation. You don't have to name these if you don't want to. You can just leave them as the default values. I just think it's a little bit easier. And the equation that we're going to use here is we're going to go equal 2 times, and we need to put in 3 parentheses here, 3 times, and then our volume, so A2, or we could say conversion, but I'm just going to leave it with A2 here to make this equation a little shorter, parentheses, divided by 2 times pi, which is 3.14, parentheses, parentheses, and then we need to take the cubed root of that, so we're going to go caret, parentheses, 1/3, like so, and then one more parentheses to finish it all off. And now we see that 1 teaspoon, which has a volume of 5,000 cubic centimeters, not centimeters, that'd be giant, cubic millimeters, is going to have a diameter, the sphere of it, will have a diameter of 26.73 millimeters. So now we can actually start creating our spoon now that we have that first little bit done. So let's drag in a half sphere here, rotate it 180 degrees, and we're going to set the diameter here to this number, or to this cell. So we will go diameter is equal to diameter equation, because that is what we named it. There you see, it got a little bit bigger. And let's actually smooth out these sides, so I'm just going to bump both of these numbers up to 100, just so it's a little bit cleaner. Alright, so right now this hemisphere is equal to 1 teaspoon. If we printed this out, that is equal to 1 teaspoon right there. So let's drag in a second sphere. This is going to form the outside of our scoop. Rotate this 180 degrees. There we go. And we want the diameter of this, because this is going to be the outside of our scoop, to be just slightly bigger than this one. So let's go equals to diameter equation plus 4, like so. And let's smooth out those walls a little bit. There we are. Oops. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this one, let's turn this into a hole, and then we will align these two hemispheres. So we want this one to be our anchor, and we are going to line it up like so. And let's just go ahead and combine it. Alright, so as it is right now, this scoop right here is equal to 1 teaspoon. Now it's equal to half a teaspoon. So we've done most of the big work already. Now we just need to make the handle and the label for it. So, good job, we're moving right along. To make the handle, let's come up here and we're going to drag in a cube. And now, let's make this cube, because we want this to kind of remain proportional. I think that we should make the length of our handle be 2.5 times whatever the diameter of this is. So, to do that, we're going to come to this cell here, and we are going to name this handle length. There we go. And we're going to make this equal to 2.5 times the diameter of our scoop. So we'll go diameter equation, so that it grabs this number here, multiplied by 2.5. You can see that our cube did not change, but that's because we have not assigned the variables to our cube yet. Before we do that though, let's come in here and we're going to set the width of our scoop, I think, to be, let's just play around with it a little bit and see what's going to look good. I think we want it to be 1/3 the diameter of our scoop. So we are going to, once again, we'll name this one handle width, like so, and it is going to be equal to 1/3 of the diameter of the bowl. So we are going to go diameter equation, maybe, there we are, divided by 3. Okay, so now let's actually assign these two variables to our cube. So we'll come here to width, and we're going to set this equal to handle length. There we go, we see it just changed. And let's set this one equal to handle width, like so. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. That handle is maybe just a little bit skinny, so let's come back in here and we'll adjust this. Let's just try half. Yeah, I think that's better. Alright, next you can see our handle is obviously way too thick. Now, I don't think we want the thickness of it to change. I think we want the handle to pretty much stay a consistent thickness no matter how big our scoop is. So I think we just go ahead and set this as a constant value of 4. So now we have the start of our handle. I think let's add some roundness to the back of this handle so it's not so square. So to do that, let's drag in a half cylinder, and we are going to rotate this 90 degrees and then upwards this way 90 degrees. Let's pull it up. There we are. And we want the width of this to equal the width of our handle. So we can just set this here to equal handle width. And the depth of it, in other words the height, is just going to match the height of this, the thickness of this, and since that's a constant value of 4, we'll just set this to a constant value of 4. And for sides, it doesn't really matter, but let's just bump it up so it's a little more smooth. There we are. And let's select both of these and align them. We want our cube to be the anchor, so that's correct. And then we will align our X. Let's see here. Like so. Yep. So now that's there. Click off of that. One thing that I should say real quick. This might just be a bug, and it'll probably be fixed eventually. But it seems like if you hit apply on an alignment, it'll throw everything off and your model won't work at the end of the day. So just click off of it like so. Next, let's give this a little bit of a taper down. So we'll rotate this 90 degrees this way and hit pinch. There we go, we got kind of a nice taper. Rotate this back. And before we align this whole handle to the scoop, let's go ahead and add our wording to this. So we're going to drag in a text tool, and we want this text to reflect whatever our size is here. So we're just going to set our text to equal teaspoon. Actually, let's not do it that way. Let's just say A1, because I'm not sure if saying teaspoon size will throw it off since this is a text thing. So there we go. Now it says 1, which reflects our number here, or our value here. And let's set the point size to equal whatever our handle width is. There we go. Beautiful. You can see that's the same width there, but we're going to set it about halfway up the handle, so I'll have a little space. And let's drag in another text here. Actually, before we do that, let's change the height of this. I think 3 millimeters would be a little bit excessive, so let's go 1.5 millimeters. And we'll drag in another text box here, and we're just going to set this to say teaspoon, like so. Once again, we are going to set this to equal our handle width, and set this to 1.5 to match this one. Let's align these two. Let's see here. There we are. And let's give it an offset of 10, like so. That way, the reason we want this offset is so that if we input longer strings of numbers, so like something like 0.75, 0.25, there'll still be some space here. Let's actually go just a little bit wider. That way we know we have space. And now that we've done that, we need to turn this into a hole because we want this to be inset into the handle, not sticking out. That'll make it easier to print. So we're going to turn that into a hole. Now we'll select this and align it to our handle. So we'll come to our handle. We want our anchor to be the handle itself and align it in the middle of the x-axis, middle of the y-axis, and up to the top like so. And I think let's just go ahead and combine it. So now we will select this, select our bowl, and let's align this. So we want our sphere, or our scoop I guess, to be the anchor here. And we want our x-axis to align up along the back, like so. And then in the center of the y-axis and top of the z-axis. Now you'll see that we're not quite attached here. So let's give it an offset on our x-axis of -1. There we go. Now we are attached. And we are basically done here. Alright, so that's our actual teaspoon. Before we finalize everything, let's just give this a try, just to make sure it all works. So we'll come here to our first cell, and let's change this to 0.75. Sometimes it takes a second for it to modify, but there we go. Look at that. It works beautifully. And now for the next step, we are going to take this from being a model here to being a model that people can download and modify on their own computers. We're going to do that with something called create component. So what we're going to do is we're going to select everything here, right click, and you're going to come to modify, design apps, and then make component. Now make component, what that's going to allow you to do is basically make a component like these primitives over here, how these have adjustable fields. We're going to do the same thing with this object. So to do that, to create those fields, what we do is we come to surfaced editors, click the plus button, and then edit. Now what we need to do here is reference the cells in our variable sheet. So these are going to become modifiable fields. So to reference a cell, well, first of all, let me show you the cell we're going to reference. So I'm going to click here and click on variable sheet. So we need to reference this cell here because this is the teaspoon size. This is what we're going to be modifying. So we're going to come here, edit this, and to reference a cell, you start with an exclamation mark like so, and then the name of the cell itself. So A1 or teaspoon size, and we're going to click save. Now right here it shows up as A1, but once we've actually exported this will show up as teaspoon size, and it'll be a field that we can modify that will then have an effect on the rest of our object. So on this model, that's the only field we're going to create. Obviously, depending on what model you're making, you might have a whole lot more fields. And actually, before we move on from this, and on that point, there's a couple of, I think there's 2 models that MatterControl has created. One of them being this pen holder, which uses a variable sheet and is following the same process that we're doing here, but you can see they have a whole lot more modifiable fields. So it's just up to you and what the model is that you're making that'll determine how many of those fields and how many cells you need to reference. So I'm sorry, I keep getting distracted. So we're going to click here, and once you've added all the fields that you want to add, you're going to click finalized. Now finally, we're going to right click, come to export, and you're going to export it as an MCX file. So we'll export this. You can see here's my other one that I created earlier. So we're just going to say variable teaspoon. And we're going to save this. Now to check and make sure this all worked, let's come here to create new design, and we will add our new design to the bed. Now you can see that it has this field over here, teaspoon size, so let's try changing that. Give it a second to run all the calculations, and look at that. We now have half a teaspoon. Or we could do, let's try a quarter teaspoon. There we are, there's a quarter teaspoon. You can do 3/4 of a teaspoon, so any size that you want, you can now create with this object that we just created, which is kind of cool. Now, I might put this object up on MatterControl, up on Thingiverse. So if you want, you can download it and just kind of play around with it. If you want to be able to view what I did, what you're going to do is you're going to right click on Modify, come to Design Apps, and you're going to click Edit Component. And now you'll be able to select the various components within this, such as the variable sheet, and see the sheet here, the different equations we used. You can click on each of the different objects, like the half sphere, and see what we set all this to. So if you want to download it and play around with it, you can do that. The same thing works with the files MatterControl created, such as the pen holder. You can right click, modify, design app, edit component, and then you can look at their variable sheets and whatnot. So there you go. There is a short project that kind of highlights the power of variable sheets and how you can use them to create models that other people can then manipulate and use. So kind of cool. Now, one disclaimer. This probably should have been at the start of the video. Maybe I'll add it to the start later. The variable sheet tool is still kind of an experimental tool. I think they're still developing it. So if you download this teaspoon in the future and it just looks broken, it's not working, there's a good chance that they've changed the variable tool. And so this object might not work the way that it should. So there you go, guys. There's a short project using the variable tool and the create component function. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Go out and create something awesome.